corruption. We read about it in the newspapers, we tackle this, we discuss it in our group meetings in university, and we take this as immense importance. So we wanted to link this to economic development because we also suffer from economic deficiencies, and we are extremely back in our economies. So our question is, how does political corruption affect economic development in the U.S. and the MENA region? So I'm going to introduce ourselves. This is Farah, Hajar, I'm Tala, and this is Hana.
Nice to meet you.
So what is political corruption? In order for us to make statements about it, we need to have a definition. According to the Transparency International, it is the use of powers by government officials for illegitimate private gain. There are a lot of forms that are under corruption, but some examples may include bribery, extortion, patronage, graft, and embezzlement. The activities that, there are a lot of countries that have these under illegal acts, but there are other countries that consider some acts that are not illegal. They can be done by members of the society. I mean, and I think so because of this, we face these kinds of corruption. According to Daniel Kaufman in 2004, the Global Governance Director of the World Bank Institute, it was suggested that worldwide bribery alone is estimated to involve over $1 trillion annually. Okay, so obviously political corruption has a lot of effects. Some are political, and corruption erodes the institutional power of the government if procedures are disregarded and resources are being hindered with. This undermines the legitimacy of the government and democratic values such as trust and tolerance. So people stop trusting the government because they are being, money is being misused and mistreated and put elsewhere. Also, research shows that variation in the level of corruption amongst high-income democracies can vary significantly depending on the level of accountability of decision makers. The second thing is the social and environmental problems. Corruption facilitates environmental destruction because if there are regulations that are being held to support the environment, and people who are officers who are trying to solve this issue are being bribed or having many other ways of corruption used, people will no longer trust them, and the environment will no longer be supported. The same thing applies to social issues like child labor. These issues are being continuously violated by the countries because it allows it has an economic advantage in the international market. Nobel Prize winner Amartya Sen says that there is no such thing as an apolitical food problem because it is a government inaction or action that determines the severity of drought, for example. The humanitarian aid, there are a lot of countries that are facing they are less developed and they're facing many economical problems. So they get aid from other countries and renowned organizations. When these organizations and people think that the countries or the officers that are being responsible for these kinds of things are being corrupted and are taking money that is not theirs, and they're misusing these kinds of aids, the aid will eventually stop. And finally, the economic effects. There is obviously an indirect relationship between the political corruption and economic growth. So, for example, if the country is politically corrupt, the economic growth will decrease. So the economy will not be as developed as other countries. Corruption distorts incentives and market forces, leading to misallocation of resources. It also diverts talents and resources, including human resources, towards lucrative and rent-seeking activities such as defense rather than productive activities. Corruption acts as an inefficient tax on business, ultimately raising production costs and reducing the profitability of investments. Finally, it may also decrease the productivity of investments by reducing the quality of resources. So how do we measure corruption? We measure to measure a country's public sector level of corruption, the CPI looks at the amount of money laundering, bribery, voter fraud, abuse of power, and any other factors that contribute to corruption. Analysis then add up a country's score, which can range from 100 least corrupt to 0, which is the most corrupt. And as we've all seen in the site visit to Transparency International, they take surveys from the World Bank and specifically look at questions that are related to corruption. Later, they study these kinds of questions and also come up with a range, ranking from 1 to 100. And now we're going to talk about the corruption in the United States.
Okay. I will talk about corruption in the U.S. And here are the types of corruption. Personal money in direct exchange for favors, which is illegal. Campaign spending and donations in exchange for favors, not really illegal. Payment later in exchange for favors now, nothing done to stop it. So for the statistics, America is the world's 19th least corrupt country in 2013, and the U.S. held this spot in 2012 too. The cleanest of corruption countries were all of the northern European countries, and the worst were the MENA region, unfortunately. According to the World Bank, in 1996 till 2008 ranking, the U.S. had scored consistently at the bottom of the top 10% with Obama administration. Beginning of 2009, it scored in the bottom of 15%. Yeah. Okay. The U.S. is down, up on 2, and unchanged on 1 during the period while Obama has been in office. This overall finding of declining performance is entirely in line with the World Bank. Corruption in the U.S. is increasing significantly during Obama's presidency. Okay. Also, during Obama's presidency, the U.S. faced a lot of economic crisis. I have a question for the Americans. So, do you think that it's true that during Obama's administration, the corruption increased? Do you think so?
Well, the data don't lie, right?
Yeah.
What she means is, do you think you've seen this on real life basis?
I think it's hard to say. I mean, that's my initial gut reaction. I'm kind of amazed by the statistics that it's gone up. Right?
That really surprises me because you hear about all these shenanigans that took place in Iraq, right? That we were going literally with suitcases of cash to give to people, and then at one point $1 billion was stolen by people. I can remember more of those kinds of incidents under the Bush administration than under Obama, but that's just my own anecdotal observation.
I would say the money that goes into politics is much more and much more visible and by these special interest groups. So again, it may be a corruption, but it's almost a more formalized or approved, validated corruption.
But I think with those, there's still a lot of loopholes that we don't really keep track of necessarily, and we sort of let slide, and that might be what you're referring to, right? So,
But also don't forget that there has been an economic crisis, so
yes,
this might also support that statistic.
And I think that you've also seen a lot of corruption at the state levels,
Yeah.
and perhaps a lot more at the state level. So you're talking about New York State, Illinois, Louisiana, even
I have a
California. So, again, there may be increased corruption, but it may actually not be federal, it may be state.
Yeah.
Virginia,
with
which
that.
is in the paper.
New Jersey.
New Jersey.
Okay, as you said, in a local term between 1976 and 2008, as well as patterns in state spending, to develop a corruption index that estimates the most and least corrupt states in the Union. The most corrupted states are Mississippi, Louisiana, Tennessee, Pennsylvania, Alabama, Illinois, Alaska, South Dakota, and Kentucky and Florida. 9 of the 10 of the most corrupt states, overall state spending was higher than in less corrupt states. South Dakota was the only exception. Per capita income, education, and ethic all predict more corruption. There is no empirical link between bigger government or more regulation and more corruption. There is a weak negative relationship between corruption and economic growth at the state or country level. Okay, here's the map that shows the corruption all over the world, and it shows that the America is the least, and as long as you go darker, it's the most corrupted.